The countdown to President John Dramani Mahama's first 120 days in office continues. We are taking a closer look at his stance on import duties. The critical question remains, will he scrap them entirely or opt for rationalization? Additionally, we'll delve into the opportunity cost of John Dramani Mahama's campaign promises on import duties and assess their broader implications for the economy. Well, the Joy News Research Desk, they have been studying the President's Manifesto. Lead data and research analyst Kofi J joins me with more on this. Kofi, let's start with what exactly you have found. When it comes
firstly, I think beyond the 120-day social contract that the president has with the people of Ghana, which we believe is a subset of a bigger document, which is the manifesto. It will be good to study both documents, side by side. And so what we did was to look at the language that was used in the manifesto, and the question you asked whether it is going to be a complete scrap of some of the, the import duties or rationalization. So we were able to find both sides of the coin. The fact that there was a side that speaks about scrapping of certain import duties. And so if you look at the first slide that talks about the import duties that will be scrapped, which was mainly based on vehicles and equipment imported into the country for industrial and agricultural purposes. So definitely, the John Dramani Mahama administration wants to scrap import duties on vehicles and equipment imported into the country, and they were very specific for industrial and agricultural purposes. And there was a side that, that has become the bone of contention about rationalization. We also were able to find that side as well. On import duties, the NDC wants to, rationalize import duties, fees, and charges to reduce the cost of doing business in the country. So import duties in general will be rationalized according to the NDC manifesto. And then you also have some fees and charges to be reduced, to be actually rationalized to reduce the cost of business. So, if you're asking me about what the manifesto said about, the scrapping and rationalization, we're able to find the two. The scrapping will go to the import duties on vehicles for agricultural purposes, and then you have a whole rationalization of import duties in general.
Now, let's look at the implications. What would this mean for government financial coffers if they decide to scrap some of this and also rationalize the rest?
Scrapping and rationalizing, and if you look at the tonation of the president, rationalizing means reducing some of the tolls, especially the import duties, especially if you are clearing a vehicle and all of that. And so all boils down to that big opportunity cost of the 10% of the country's total revenue that is at stake at the moment. That is how much import duties contribute to the kitty. It's about 10% almost every year to the country's total revenue. And if you do the math this year, 2025, although we do not have the full budget for the 2025 fiscal year, we understand that import duties could be bringing in some 20 to 21 billion Ghana cedis in 2025. So if you are going to rationalize import duties in general, and then also rationalize some fees and charges, as well as actually scrap import duties on vehicles imported into the country for agricultural purposes, then definitely that's going to affect the quantum of money that we will be getting from that kitty, which at the moment we believe is about 10% of the country's total revenue. So the opportunity cost at stake here, maybe we may not be able to quantify the actual cost of the rationalization and scrapping, but what we know is that the revenue at stake is about $20 billion that the government will be looking at, and how they bring it down will also send a signal into the market to see how government is going to, what will be the alternative, especially looking at the fact that we are currently under an IMF program. So any form of policy that will reduce revenue handles, definitely the John Dramani Mahama administration would have to go to the negotiation table with alternatives first.
Thank you, Kofi AJ, for bringing us that update. And we are going to be speaking to Professor Lord Mensah, as an economist, as we look at the financial implications of some of these tax cuts and also rationalization that the president is proposing. But with me in the studio is Samson Asakia Wingobet. He is a leading member of the Importers and Exporters Association. Thank you so much for your time here.
Thank you.
He is executive.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. As an executive secretary, I'm sure you're pleased with some of these implementations that this government is hoping to put forth. But I'm looking at the tax cuts actually would only affect individuals who are importing vehicles for agricultural purposes. As an association, what are your thoughts about that?
All right, so first and foremost, let me use this opportunity since the inauguration of President Mahama, second term in the office. I always use this opportunity to congratulate him. We at the business community are very happy in the sense that before his party manifesto was drafted and presented to Ghanaians, he met with the maritime trade community, and which I had the privilege to be part, and we raised so many issues. He also told us what he was going to do, and at the end of the day, that became the policy that we are all going to discuss this morning. And let me congratulate him for his inauguration, because there was one of the successful inauguration that nothing happened. So many presidents came from other countries with now and former presidents, and so this was a historic event for the former president and the current president, John Dramani Mahama. Let me say that yes, in the business community, we are very optimistic that the president will do a good job. I have seen your analyst who says that what import duty that add to total GDP is 10%. Yeah. And so I also see people raising issues in regards to even my own brothers from Ghana Union of Traders are also calling that, I don't know if it's authentic, that the e-levy should be used to support women in SMEs, yes, and then to scrap it off. Yeah. And so these are all contributions people are bringing. But the president said, when he was a candidate, said, I'm going to scrap all these things. So those who are also calling that, don't scrap it, but keep it and use it to support this area, I think it's also not a bad place. That means that we've opened for another chapter of conversation. So it doesn't look like if at the end of the day, e-levy is not scrapped, people can say that President Mahama has made a promise and refused to implement it. But I think Ghanaians are making it a genuine call. Yes, as I said, President Mahama's focus is that we want, I think, and many Ghanaians know that we import a lot, especially when you come to food sector. Okay, so he wants to give opportunity to commercialize farmers. So I think that this is policy of scrapping import duties on vehicles and agricultural equipment. He's talking about people who are going to go into commercialized farming, like he himself. You know, he went to his farm in Bole. You saw how huge the farm was. So such a person needs like 5-10 tractors, needs irrigation equipment that if there is so that he can do all year round. You know, in the northern part of Ghana, we does farming only one season. So, but in the southern part of Ghana, we does farming continuously. So the old thing to support, to reduce unemployment, is to introduce irrigation farming so that we do not have only one time 3 to 4 months farming season, but we can have all year round farming. And I think that is the way to go. So to produce more food, so to make food available for all of us, is the way forward is to do commercialized farming. And that is why we want to give tractor equipment and other things, farm input, some discount. The other aspect is the COVID levy, which we all know that COVID levy, we do not have COVID. And so if COVID is no more an epidemic, why do we continue to have COVID levy? It was one of the things that he said in his 120 days, they will scrap that COVID levy. Maybe others may also come, like Guta is calling that, to use that money to support women in SMEs. Maybe another person will come and say, can we use that money to support maybe the Kaido, the Kaido issues that is happening at Kolebu, where the dialysis machine and other things, we don't have it.
As an association, I want to know your stance. I'm sure you are pleased about government's proposal to scrap some of this.
You know, it was non-negotiable. We have actually called that business community transfers huge money to pay duties and taxes and fees and charges, as we talk about. And so you use mobile money, because GRA has a portal that you can use mobile money to pay your duty through your Mumbo. Okay. And so while you transfer huge monies, charges affect you. Do you understand? So it was a non-negotiable. We were calling that it should be abolished. Two, the COVID levy, we were also calling that whilst there's no COVID, whilst the World Health Organization scrap off COVID levy and said that COVID is no more a pandemic, then there was no need to introduce COVID. So for that matter, COVID levy should go off. It was something that we not watch. In fact, there's another component of import duty. That is 2% special import duty. It used to be 1% and 2%.
Okay.
But in the MPP 2017, abolished the 1%. And that 1% was the one that metamorphosed to come back as COVID levy. So there's still a 2% that has been running since 2017. It should have gone off 2017. It's still running in our books now, as we speak now. So scrapping or doing rationalization of the duties, taxes, and fees and charges is something that we're also looking for, because this is a technical word President Mahama used. He wasn't specific. If, like, think his predecessor, or what should I say, his counterpart, like his Bamaya, he was campaigning like if he come, he will make a flat rate. You understand? So, if I'm bringing 40 container of rice, maybe rice is being imported in 20 container, and maybe I know that my duty is maybe 200,000 Ghana cedis. So it's predictable. I know that when I when I ship in 20 container to Ghana, I'm going to pay the duty at 200,000. So it's predictable. I know that I arrive in Ghana, that I'm not asking how much I'm going to pay. So these are some of the things that he wants to do. So we wait to see the rest, and I'm sure he will not do rationalization without consulting us. Definitely, he will want to have a meeting with the stakeholders again to discuss with us and to so that we all agree which area.
But even before the elections, I know that he held a meeting with some of the key stakeholders in the sector.
Yes,
you
that's
were
what I said.
A key member of that.
Yes,
what did you agree upon over there?
No, that's the thing. The issues raised. The issues raised that some of these taxes should be scrapped off.
Okay.
Which was captured, found its way to the manifesto. Okay. The only term that he used, he did not use, is to rationalize the tax. It was after when the manifesto was launched. That's where we got to know that he said they realized fees and charges and duties, isn't it? Yeah. So some of the fees and charges is, we have been complaining as the business commission that, look, it's like the institutions working in the port. When I talk about the institutions, I'm talking about the Ghana Standards Authority, FDA, veterinary services, all the agencies working in the port there. It's like if they see FDA introduce a fee, and you know the thing that FDA does, then you see Standards Authority also want to increase. Then the rest is like it escalates. Okay, it cut across. They are all increasing, which they are not a revenue generation authority. They are just to perform some certain functions. And you cannot charge more than the function that you are performing. It should be commensurate with the service that you are doing. So maybe if you want to bring them all together, it's okay, charge one particular fee and share amount across board. I don't know how that's going to be done, but I think he will want to have a national conversation or engage we and those agencies.
Okay.
Then the other aspect that we are looking forward to President Mahama to do is there's a call, and it wasn't captured in his manifesto, the local handling charges by shipping lines. It was silent on the manifesto. We raised this, that how come that I pay a fee, I pay a freight to bring my container to Ghana.
Okay.
And when my container landed in Ghana, I have 5 of them on one document, one bit of lading. Okay. Then I have paid freight to you to bring those 5 containers. Then coming for you to release my container for me, get the pressure of a button, you want to charge me 10,000 times 5 on one document.
Stay with me, because I know you have a lot to share. Let me bring in Professor Lord Mensah as we look at the opportunity cost of government's decision to scrap some of these import duties on importation of vehicles for agricultural production purposes, and also rationalization of some of these taxes. Thank you, Professor Lord Mensah, for your time here on NewsX. We have seen that this would come at a cost. Roughly 10% we are foreseeing. Seeing that we're already under an IMF program where we're supposed to ensure that...
Not 10%. He said...
10%.
said that the revenue coming from imports.
Okay, you hold on with me. Let me make my point. Professor Lord Mensah, so I want to look at the opportunity cost of how much government would be letting go of if they go ahead to implement some of these tax cuts they are proposing.
Yeah, so we have to be careful how we interpret, the numbers out there. If I break down import and levies, I'm going by the DRA's report. Let me say, good morning to our viewers and good morning to our fellow partners, my fellow panelists out there. Clearly, if you break down the numbers, going by the 2023, annual report by the DRA, you appreciate that import duties constitute about almost 14 billion out of the 116.97 billion that the country generated out of, tax collection levies. Now, I think the proposal by the NDC administration is not to scrap import duties. I mean, Ghana, we can't not run the economy on.
And that we have established already.
Yes, we cannot run on import free. But then there are some, new sales taxes that I think, is impeding production in terms of importation. And that is where probably the administration may have to look at. And when you put all together, that will not be more than 6% of what revenue that is generated for the country. So from where I sit, I think you have to look at it in two ways. In as much as there will be a cost, we also have to look at the multiplier effect of allowing this cost when possibly these levies are removed and import is increased. We're running on an economy where we have to import more than, we export. And when it happens like that, you always need certain levels of importation to energize the economy. And so if there are levies and taxes that are stampeding or possibly reducing importation, then probably you may have to, look at it. Somebody will say, yes, of course, we've signed an agreement with the IMF program, and as a result of that, we have hedged, our revenue, possibly promising IMF that by the end of the program, we should be able to increase our revenue to 18% to GDP. But we may have to understand that some of these taxes, right, and some of these levies, in their, holding up at the port, more or less will reduce importation. And so economic activities that are supposed to be generated as a result of importation, we're not getting them as much. So if you take, for instance, import COVID, health recovery, levy, that is giving us around 706 million. I'm going by the GRA's, annual report. And this is up to 1% of the entire revenue that we rake in, at the end of the year. So effectively, we need to understand that, one, if businesses are saying, COVID levy is causing a problem, and therefore, more or less should be removed to enhance, import, I think government should hit to it. But let's also look at the expenditure side. Somebody will say, yes, it is a cost to the government to allow some of these, levies to go. But then we also have to look at the expenditure side, what we can make up. So we don't have to look at only the revenue side. Because if you look at the revenue side, you may be deceived. You may be deceived in the sense that there are some, expenditure lines that can be given up, to allow in the losses that the government made, in the immediate term. Now we are looking at a government that has given the signal that, look, we don't need money in the immediate term. So possibly we may have to allow, imports to go on so the economic activities can be created, and by so doing, we generate, the income.
Okay. Thank you so much, Professor Lord Mensah. Unfortunately, we have to let you go, but point well noted. Let me take just 30 seconds to just get the final words of Samson Asaki Wingobed. For our audience who just tuned in, we're just putting the spotlight on President John Dramani Mahama's position on import duties. He served notice that he will scrap import duties on vehicles and equipment imported into the country for industrial and agricultural purposes, and rationalization for other fees and charges to reduce the cost of doing business. Your final words, 30 seconds.
Yes, so as I was saying, President Mahama will have to also look at that call by the business community, because that is also a burden on the business community. The shipping lines that will pay freight They get to Ghana, they say that I have 10 containers on one docket, one bit of lading. You say you are charging me 10 times, gets to release, gets to press a button, how many times? And this shipment line does not add any value to any importer who bring a container. Meanwhile, you've taken freight. So that is another cost, huge cost that people, if I tell you how much people pay to these shipping lines, get for no work done. Not that you've run to demurrage. Demurrage here is when you're holding their container after demurrage, seven free days. But this one gets local handling charges. It's an area that if President Mahama is able to step down his foot, the next transport minister is able to step down his foot and make sure that they scrap it off, that alone can, we will not even be talking about 2% special import levy or even 2% COVID levy. That alone is a huge money that business communities are paying. Then, of course, I think, as he said, President Mahama is not coming to scrap any duties, but he's going to make an environment say that at least they will cushion the business community. So that instead of taking our container to Ivory Coast and Togo...
Oh, we've just told you he's scrapping import duties on vehicles imported for industrial and agricultural purposes.
Yeah,
so he's indeed scrapping import duties.
No. So I've said
so it's not inaccurate.
No, so that's one I said that is for purpose of industrialization.
Exactly.
The only thing that we need to know is that what vehicle that will go to industries that you want to scrap.
Yeah.
What vehicle? But for agri, we know. You and I will know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So maybe he's talking about machinery. The industry, maybe someone who wants to bring in machinery to set up a factory. That one, taxes will not be on it. So when you say scrapping of vehicles and duties on vehicles and agricultural machinery, I will need to ask further so that they can explain. I think probably they want to say that machinery to set up industries and not vehicle for industries.
Thank you so much, Samson, for giving us your thoughts here on News X. And that's how...